Hi, I'm Bob Ethington.
And I'm Nick Nicholas.
And this is From Akron and Beyond. Well, hello, everybody. Bob here. Hi there, Nick.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Well, really good. And we have a good friend of yours, Nick, on our show, and also a person who's been making music for over 50 years.
That's a long time.
Amazing career. Yeah. And has, been part of some of the most important bands that have come out of the Northeast Ohio area, most influential bands. I'm talking about Mr. Craig Bell. Hi there, Craig.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Nick. How you doing?
Good, man. Finally, get to have you here.
Yeah, we wanted to have you on for a long time. And the occasion for this is that there'll be some shows coming up later in the month of June of 2026 as we're recording this. Shows in Akron, Columbus, and in Cleveland.
Yeah, and what's the name of the current band that you're going to be touring with?
The band we'll be coming out to Ohio with is Craig Bell and the Dead Man's Handle.
All right.
And I know you're playing at with the Bizarros at Jilly's, and that's on June 27th?
Yeah, June 27th. And we were lucky enough to play with the same band at the Beachland Tavern a few years ago. Man, what a great band, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to look for the show. Yeah.
And the other two shows coming up, you're doing like a little mini tour, right?
Yeah, so we're just doing a few shows in Ohio. Our friend Adam Rich in Cleveland got a hold of me around Christmas time, and he said he was doing one of his, Love Muffin Paloozas. And, I had played one of his shows that he promoted at the Fantasy Nightclub in Cleveland, in Lakewood, actually, my hometown.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I want to say, early teens, probably about 10, 12 years ago, and had a great time. So when he called again, we said, sure, let's do it. And this isn't the Love Muffin Palooza. It's actually, I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but let's just call it the Great Big Show.
And what's the date and the place?
Well, that's going to be at the Beachland Ballroom on the big stage.
Oh.
It's Sunday, the 28th of June, and it'll be with us, and it's going to be with the Robert Kahn Band, who is also performing with us and the Bizarros previous night in Gillette at Gillie's Music. And I got to take a quick look here on my phone and to get a piece of information, so bear with me, please.
Yep.
You were saying you're playing in Columbus the 26th then, I guess, right? The night before Jilly's?
We're returning to Cafe Bourbon Street, and we'll be with the Robert Kahn Band and the Cheater Slicks.
Okay.
You know, it's interesting. There were just a couple of shows that we did with Tom Mulready recently. One at the Beachland Tavern and one at the Night Stage. It was a collection of we did tributes to different musicians from our era, and as well as my band of Bizarros. But Robert Kahn Band was on both of those gigs. So this will be the third time we had to play with him.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to playing with Robert. Now, I've done a lot of shows with him over the years out here in the Midwest and down in Texas, where he had a band for many years with his wife, Jules. Starting out, first they were called Chelsea Hotel, and then they changed the name to the Guillotines, pretty much the same thing. Yeah, we had some great times. We went all over Texas with those guys. We played up in Chicago, and we played out here in Indianapolis, where I'm living these days.
You know what was really cool, too? I got to play in another band with you, but a band from my day, in your day, the mid to late 70s, a band called Simply Saucer.
Oh, yeah.
And you were like, the band had they're from Canada, correct?
Right.
And they had trouble getting one of their members in the country, and you filled in for them.
Yeah, Edgar and I, the leader of the band, Edgar Bro, go back to the early 1970s when we were both members of the Sid Barrett fan club.
Oh.
And we met that way, and we became pen pals. Edgar was living up in Hamilton, Ontario. I was down in Cleveland. And at that time, we were telling each other about the bands we were in. I was in Mirrors at that time, and he was starting up with his brother and I think a brother and a cousin and some other guys up in Canada that were starting Simply Saucer. And as things evolved over the years, we sort of kept in touch a little bit, lost touch. Well, it wasn't until 2011 that Rock from the Tombs was playing up in Hamilton, and on the bill was a reformed Simply Saucer. So Edgar and I finally, after all those years, got to meet face to face.
Wow.
And resulting from that, we kept in closer touch. And when he did get an offer to play some shows down here in the States, one of the members of the band had some kind of visa problem. I'm not exactly sure what it was. And he asked me if I could help out. So we did about three tours together down here in the mid-teens, late teens, and had a great time. I mean, what a wonderful band.
Oh, man, that was one of the best, most fun shows we've played with anybody.
Yeah, it's a wonderful band, and Edgar's still going strong up in Canada.
You know, they were one of the early bands that released a self-titled 45 the way the Bizarros and Pere Ubu did, back in those days. I remember seeing their ads in Trouser Press,
Absolutely. It was tough. I mean, of course, how tough it was to put a record out by yourself in those days.
Yeah.
There's such a much better network now for getting your music out in front of people. I'm very happy for it because you just hear so much phenomenal stuff, but also you can get your stuff out quicker to people now than you ever could before.
Yeah. I remember, the show I just talked about, that two shows that we just did with the other bands, in Cleveland and at the night stage. They showed Tom already put together a hell of a good show. It was well documented. Besides the bands each doing 3 or 4 songs, had a little video presentation. He did an hour of an interview, and he edited it down to like 3 minutes. And you were one of them, and it was great to hear you describe the genesis of I think one of the best top 10 songs from our era, Final Solution. You were one of the writers of that song. Tell us a little bit about that, because I can just see you there in the video monitor describing that.
Yeah, people mentioned to me that was in part of the show. Adam mentioned that after the Cleveland show. He says, "Oh, you were there. You were on the video." And I'm thinking to myself, I knew I had talked to Tom in the past, and I totally forgotten about doing a video interview with him. So I really appreciate him putting that in the show. But the story he's talking about is one evening at rehearsal.
Rehearsal for who? What band?
For Rock from the Tombs. I showed up at rehearsal, and I think David and I were the first ones there, and we're just, waiting for everybody else. And he goes, "Hey, I've got this new song." I go, "Oh, okay, well, what is it?" And he's sitting in a chair next to this table.
That's David Thomas, of course, for Pere Ubu.
Crocus Behemoth, as he was known in those days. And he just sitting there next to the table, and he pulls out the lyrics, and he starts reading the lyrics, and he starts banging his hand on the table, just up.
Wow.
Girls won't touch me 'cause I got a misdirection. Now do something there. So we start up again, and I'm like, thump, 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 thump. We stop, and I just... And he goes, yeah, okay, all right. And then we move on. So we got something. We're working on something here. The rest of the band shows up, and we show it to those guys, and we start playing it. And we we started to put the song together, and then Peter added the.
That's Peter
the ending.
Peter Lochner, right?
Peter Lochner added the ending to it. Cheetah Chrome and Johnny Blitz were adding their parts to it as we went along, and pretty much in no time we had Final Solution. It was a slightly different variation than the version that Pere Ubu recorded a couple of years later for their their second single. But the version that we did, the way we played it, came out on the 2002 album, The Day the Earth Met Rocks from the Tomb.
Yeah, that's a great album.
Yeah, classic.
Thank
So, Craig, let's back it up here a little bit. So you mentioned that you are from Lakewood originally?
Well, I came to Lakewood. I came to Cleveland, Ohio when I was 9 years old.
So,
I'm originally from a town in New York, Elmira, New York.
Okay.
And I lived there as an infant. I really don't remember that. What I remember mostly was living in a suburb of Buffalo called Cheektowaga, and then moved to a small town in New Jersey called Denville, which was close to Hoboken, where my father worked.
Okay.
And we lived there until he was transferred to Cleveland in like 1961. So when I was 9 in 61, I came to Lakewood and pretty much grew up there.
Okay. All right. And so you went to high school there, I'm guessing. Oh,
Yes.
okay. And so what was your first band?
Well, the first band I was in was Mirrors.
Okay.
In 1971.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I was hanging out with friends who had bands, but I was never a member of one. I was not playing until I got a little bit older.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of amazing that the Mirrors was your first band.
Yeah, important band.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. It was. Well, I knew Jim Crook when I was in high school. Him and Jamie went to, I believe, West High School on the west side of Cleveland.
Okay.
And I did not know Jamie at the time. I
And
knew
that's
his
Jamie Climack.
Jamie Climack,
Yeah.
the founder of Mirrors. Yes. And I knew his brother Terry Climack because Terry, at one time, I had classes with him at Lakewood High School.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Climack family was moving at that time, like between the west side of Cleveland and Lakewood. So Jamie, I don't know if he ever went to Lakewood, but other members of his family did.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew Terry, but didn't know Jamie at that time. But I knew Jim because he was dating my girlfriend's best friend. So the four of us were hanging out a lot listening to records. Jim was a couple of years older than us.
Mm-hmm.
He was out of school, and he had been, I met him shortly before he left for the Army. He was drafted. I think this was like 1968, 1969.
Mm.
So I knew Jim, graduated from high school in 1970, got out on my own, got a job, and I was working, and I decided, and all this time I wanted to be in a band, but while I was living at home, that wasn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So once I got out on my own, I said, well, I'd like to be in a band. So 1971, I'm down at the Agora in Cleveland, the nightclub.
Yeah.
What they called at the time, the Velvet Underground, without Lou Reed, just Doug Yule.
Yeah,
and
right.
Powers.
Yeah,
Sterling Morrison and Marine were there, but I know Sterling was there, but I'm not sure if Mo Tucker was on the drums. But anyway.
Well, I saw that version at Smiling Dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
At Smiling Dog, you say?
Yep.
When?
It had
Right,
to be
it was right when Loaded came out, and Lou Reed had not been in the band then.
Oh, okay. Well, this was probably about a year after that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this was like May of 71.
I think Willie Alexander, was playing bass at that time.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anyway, I run into Jim there. Hadn't seen him for some time because he had been in Vietnam. I guess he was freshly out of the Army.
Hmm.
And I asked him, I said, well, what's going on? What are you doing? He goes, oh, me and my friend are trying to start a band. And I say, oh, you don't say. So I I said, well, I'd like to get in the band, and I'd be interested. So he says, well, why don't you come over and we'll see if things work out. So I went over. I brought my Sid Barrett solo albums with me, which I told him about. He wanted to hear them. So that was my first in with these guys. And we get over there, and I met Jamie, and I met Jamie's sister, Karen, and I also spent the next few days just hanging out with everybody. We were playing records, and they were playing the tapes they had made and things, and it was finally decided that I was going to be the bass player. So that's how I got into Mirrors.
Okay. So you've mentioned Sid Barrett. What other music were you listening to at the time? What was in your inspirations?
Well, mine, back in those days, I mean, I was heavily influenced, of course, just like everybody else, by the Beatles. But
Sure.
even prior to that, when I was about 5 or 6, I discovered the radio. Just listening to radio. And I used to spend hours listening to the radio, any station, just see how far. I mean, this was when I was living in New York, when I was living in D.C., when I moved to Cleveland. In fact, when I moved to Cleveland, took it another step because we had an unfinished attic, and my brother and I strung wire all through the rafters of the attic, and my brother had built one of those Heathkit shortwave radios.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I remember those.
So we were listening to shortwave transmissions, and I hooked up my AM radio to it, so I had this big antenna that on clear nights you could hear like half of Canada. And
Wow.
the furthest I ever logged in my notebook was like Denver, Colorado one night. I'm real staticky. I just, as long as I could get the call letters, I could then go to the library and find out where the radio station was.
Right.
And so I was doing that, and that exposed me to a lot of different kind of music. Because, like, in my family house, it wasn't a very musical family. I think my mom was a Sinatra fan, so we had some Sinatra stuff. My dad liked bagpipes. So we had a lot of bagpipe albums, and the one album that I really liked was we had a Jackie Gleason record. It had a cover by Salvador Dali.
Oh, I remember that. I've seen that cover. Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved that record. I can't remember the name of the record now, but I loved that record, and I love my dad's bagpipe records. I mean, I love a good bagpipe. And then, of course, I'm living on the west side of Cleveland, so there's polka music, and so there's all this kind of music that is being influenced. But once rock and roll hit, I mean, that pretty much was it.
Right.
The first physical record I ever bought was in the early 60s. I bought Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot.
Great.
So that was the basis of my record collection, was right there. That was what I built the whole thing on from there. But when the Beatles hit, of course, just what every other kid in the country, man, I just thought the Beatles were the most awesome.
Sure.
And right around shortly after that, a year or so, I discovered the Kinks. And the Kinks became they are my all-time favorite band.
Me too.
I love them, but I also loved bands like the Turtles. I loved all the garage stuff, the early Beach Boys and Jan and Dean and all that. I loved all that. When the mid-'60s kicked in with the San Francisco sound, I was all in on that. I was a big fan of Jefferson Airplane and Quicksilver and things like that. But what really was grabbing me, too, was the sounds out of Detroit and New York. People like the Stooges and the MC5.
Right, right.
I mean, those became very, very often on the turntable. And these were the things that just coincided with guys like Jamie and Jim, so we made a good fit. We loved playing Trog songs. We loved playing obscure garage songs and stuff like that.
When you first got together, were you basically doing covers of other people's songs then, and then you started to write your own stuff?
Yes. Well, Jamie and Jim had already been writing, and they were writing some songs. I hadn't. I was just learning how to play cover songs and what have you. We basically became a Velvet Underground cover band.
Oh, wow.
We could ask Harvey Gold, because Harvey used to play with, we played a couple of shows with Tin Huey back then. And, we were deep into the Velvets. I mean, we were doing stuff that wasn't even on albums, because Jamie and Jim had been to many of the Le Cave shows, the nightclub, the little coffee house on the east side of Cleveland where the Velvets played in the 60s.
Right.
And they might have been at every show there, those two guys, and they recorded the sets.
Oh, wow.
Jamie would make a cassette of the show. He would send it to Lou in New York. Lou would make a copy of it and send it back to him.
Wow. Okay. Huh.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
So you were hearing stuff like Foggy Notion and stuff that would not have been on albums yet, right? Yeah.
Wouldn't have been on albums. Funny story, jumping ahead a little bit. In the mid-'80s in Connecticut, I had a number of bands, and I played Foggy Notion quite a bit, starting in the late 70s through the 80s. And after that, those two albums, what was Another View, and I forget what the other one was called, that MGM put out with old Velvet's outtakes.
Yeah, there was VU and then Another View, yeah.
Yeah, and on there was Foggy Notion. So I'm walking down the street one day in New Haven. A friend of mine comes up and says, "Hey, Craig, I just got this album by the Velvets, and they're doing one of your songs." And I'm like, no. Other way around, But I mean, we were playing that song for so long.
Right.
Did the Mirrors last very long?
Well, my stint with the Mirrors lasted from 1971 to early 1975. So
man.
But Mirrors went on longer than that in different iterations. Jamie and Paul Murata worked together for many years, either under the Mirrors name or the Styrenes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, so it did go on for a long time. And even in these last few years before Jamie's passing, when he came back to Cleveland in the 90s, he reformed Mirrors with, I'm trying to think of the names of some of the guys that were in there. Tom Mate was playing drums, and Dave Franduto was one of the guitarists, and Tom Fallon was the other guitarist. And those guys, when we did the Mirrors reunion in the early 2000s at I want to say WFMU, and I know it's not WFMU. It's
CWR.
Case Western.
Yeah.
Case Western station did that Rockorama every year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Didn't the Bizarros ever play that?
No.
Rockorama. Well, they had a Mirrors reunion, and Jamie had not only Jim Crook and myself and Paul Murata from the original band, but he also had the Toms and Dave. So it was this sea of guitars up there. There's some YouTube video up from those shows, and it's just amazing. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 guitars going at once. It's epic. There's a lot.
Wow.
But yeah, Mirrors went on longer than my stay in it.
What was the Mirrors recorded legacy? Like, are there 45s? Was there?
I used to have a 45.
Okay.
There was a 45 put out on Harrison. That was after my time in the band. I'm not on that single. Of She Smiled Wild.
Yeah.
Shirley. And then after that, there was a CD put out, I think, in the early 90s called Hands in My Pockets. I'm on a lot of tracks on that. I
remember that. Okay.
Recordings, either from our rehearsal space, or we did a session in a studio in a factory downtown I think it was on Payne Avenue. Brian Risner, who I went to high school with, and who later was sound man for many, many years with Weather Report.
Oh, wow.
Had a studio there, and he recorded that was the first time ever was recorded music that I was playing.
Okay.
And that stuff all appeared on that Hands in My Pocket CD in the 90s, except for one track, which was this track Slow Down, which was one of the first songs I had written when I was in Mirrors. We recorded that, and that never came out until about 2014. I put out a compilation album of some of my early recordings called AKA Darwin Lane. And that Mirrors track is on there.
Okay. It's interesting how certain bands, and Rocket from the Tombs would be another example, which we'll get to in a second, have a justified legend, about them, but then it's actually like the actual body of recorded material is kind of scattered. It's kind of an interesting thing, and it's cool that stuff has did resurface on CD years later.
Yes, and it's Nick, how hard it was in those days to record.
Yeah,
because nobody really had any good equipment, and the equipment even that was pro level was nothing like what they have these days. I mean, I'm just amazed at the quality of recordings that we can just get in our rehearsal room with an iPhone.
Yeah, sure. It used to be hard as hell.
Nuts.
Yeah.
It's just God. If we had iPhones in like 1972, we would have ruled the world.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we made it too complicated for ourselves as well. I mean, I always look back at, some recordings that like the band I was in, Unit 5 did, and we'd be in a studio and, and it would take forever. You do a drum check, get the drum sound. It would take you like an hour and a half, it'd just be ridiculous. And ultimately, it would sound okay. It could sound good. But then there'd be recordings where we literally had like one microphone hanging from a pipe in the ceiling, and then we were just playing live, like just practicing, just for, really only recorded it for our own purposes. And years later, I'd go back and listen to some of that stuff, and I'm like, that sounds as good, if not better, than the studio stuff did. You know what I mean?
Same with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had certain things like that with my stuff too. Is that what you capture in the moment, like maybe a show that you were doing at a radio station, at a college radio station that they were doing out live over the air.
Yeah.
Just captured that moment for you, and it just made that particular song. You just can't. You can go in the studio and try, but you just can't get it back.
Right. It's like almost like a room ambience too. Sometimes, don't you think? Just yeah.
And a lot of times it's just luck.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Bob, you were talking about being in the studio and being there forever to get the drum sound and things like that. I know that was like an intimidating factor. It seemed like early on when I would go to record, was that it just took so long to get everything set up.
Right.
Everything's you're waiting around, and then all of a sudden the engineer or the producer or whoever's running the show turns on to you and says, "Okay, start recording."
Yeah.
And you're like, "What? Okay." And it's funny. Just last Sunday, we did some recording here in town, and we went to a studio we had never been to before. So there was a little bit of that setup and getting used to things.
Yeah.
But it was so funny about how quickly now that just falls into place, because you've been here before, you've done these kind of things before. Sure, it's going to sound different for a couple of takes, but just do those takes, and all of a sudden you hear where everybody is,
right?
You know what's going, and off you go, and just I love recording. I love putting things down in the studio, because you can just sit back and hear it now, and just it inspires you. Unfortunately, it always makes me want to rewrite every song.
We were talking earlier about
that, or we should have done this or that. So I got to control myself. I can get out of hand with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've worked with a wide variety of musicians. I've been fortunate to, and yeah, one thing that I like from the old punk rock days and probably the early rock days is a more spontaneous approach. Like getting the song down and ideally in 1, 2, maybe 3 takes. I love that, and with some musicians you get that, and then with other people. They're always second guessing everything, and they want to re-record and overdub everything over and over again. And, and I understand both impulses, and, the latter is a kind of a perfectionist impulse. But again, to me, I think sometimes that ends up losing what the merit and the power of the tune was originally. You lose that spontaneity.
I agree. And, it is a fine line between the spontaneity and the perfectionism, where you've got to find that happy center where you can be. If you have those feelings going either way, you've got to find that center point where you're comfortable with that, and that's where you can really, really create.
Right. Yeah, that's well put. Yeah.
We're talking at the very beginning about Rocket from the Tombs. Did you guys, in any iteration, ever play out live much?
Surprisingly, there was this guy, what was his name? Nick. This guy from Boston that came back to Cleveland and did an in-depth research on Rocket from the Tombs history and stuff like that. And he came up with about maybe a dozen or so shows that we played, because we were not, in that iteration of the band, we were not together long. I think we were together like 9 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Really. From the time I joined the band, because I was the last one in. And they came and asked me to join, and Cheetah and Johnny were already there, and we started rehearsing, and that was like in the fall of 1974. And by the Christmas of 1975, we were done.
Oh, okay.
We had broken up. All the stuff that happened to us happened in that 9-month period. It was like a rocket ship that straight down.
Wow.
It was amazing. I even remember one morning laying in bed, looking up at the ceiling, thinking to me, what happened? It took a long time for me to wrap my head around the whole situation.
Man.
And it took me years to really finally figure it out.
Yeah.
But it was amazing, though, in the middle of it. It was just like everything that you, of course, hope for, strive for when you start a band, to be falling into place like it was just meant to be. Yeah. And it probably made it even more shocking and hard to move forward when it all of a sudden just collapsed.
Well, let me ask you a little bit about that. Now, first of all, the Rocket from the Tombs is the epitome of a band that had a myth. I mean, people had heard the name. There were a couple of songs that had kind of, appeared here or there. I think there was that Pere Ubu box set, The Data Panic in Year Zero, that came out.
I think there was a coffee break concert or something.
Yeah, and there were like a couple songs on that box set of Rock from the Tomb stuff. But then there was that CD that came out of really of the basic recordings that you guys had done, all the original recordings. And
was that the Ubu Unchained one? There was one called Ubu Unchained that had some live Ubu stuff, and then on the other side of it was the Rocket from the Tombs.
I remember that, yes. Mm-hmm.
I have that CD. I found that out here in Indiana in a bargain bin for like $1.
Wow, funny.
And I didn't know when I picked it up. I said, "Ooh, an Ubu bootleg."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
And I didn't even know, so I just took it home and I played it. And I said, "Wait a minute."
Yeah.
Of course, I had that stuff too. In fact, I don't want to get too far off what you're trying to say, what you're trying to talk about, but I'm kind of responsible for the album.
Okay.
The Life Stinks album, I believe.
Right. Yeah.
But we can talk about that if you want to.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, that album, it was just when that finally came out, we were able to hear what the reality of this myth was. And, sometimes the reality doesn't live up to the myth, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, this legendary band, and then you hear them and it's like, oh, they're okay, but
we probably could mention a couple of names about that.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's also in the eye of the beholder, because what to us might think, that's not quite up to the hype. To someone else, that could be like, oh my God, this is like 10 times better than I even.
Yeah, there's exactly one thing. One thing it's taken me decades to learn is there's no absolutes in music. So saying that this is better than that is kind of a lost cause. Yeah. But I will say that for me, when I finally got to hear that Life Stinks CD of those original recordings, I was blown away. And I knew Ubu stuff and, of course, Dead Boys stuff and all that. I was big fans of both, especially Ubu. But, I was just amazed how that Rocket from the Tomb stuff lived up to the legend. I just thought those recordings were so great, so ahead of their time. It must have been amazing to be playing in that band.
It was.
Yeah. And what kind of response did you guys have in real time when you were doing that? Was it basically you knew what you were doing was really great, or were you getting a response from audiences?
Well, we got good responses from the audience, and we were also benefiting from the fact that some of our earliest gigs were fairly high-profile gigs. We opened for Iron Butterfly.
Okay.
We opened for Left End. Oh, but we were playing the Viking Saloon, and we were playing. Actually, we weren't playing too many other places besides the Viking Saloon.
Well, wasn't David?
We also opened for television for those two shows.
You did?
Wow.
And I was reading something on Facebook not too long ago where someone was retelling their experiences at that Piccadilly show, and they were talking about how poorly attended it was. And I don't remember it being poorly attended. In fact, I remember it, at least the first night, if not the second night, to be packed. So I don't know, maybe I was sitting in the crowded part of the club, but it just seems to me that their perception of what happened that night, or what that night was like, is quite different from what I remember.
Wasn't that when David Thomas, or Crocus Behemoth, as he was known, was he a doorman at the Viking or something?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
And he also was he was better known as a writer and a columnist for the Scene
magazine, yeah.
For I think he did some writing for a previous underground paper called the Dada Boom.
Oh yeah.
And so that's how I first knew of Crocus Behemoth. Then got to know him through him being around town. I never saw the first iteration of Rocket from the Tombs with Charlie Wiener and Glenn Hatch, and then Peter joined them, and then Peter and David formed the Rocket that I was in.
God, it's the first time I ever heard that Charlie Wiener was in original.
Yeah, well, he was those days known by his real name, Chris Zoneville.
Okay.
Everything gets uncovered on this show.
Yeah, right? We learn something every time.
No, that's what this is the service that you're performing. Us for generations to come.
Yeah. Now, were you in the? The Bazaars we opened for Pere Ubu several times on Thursdays at the Pirates Cove, and that was later early, well, sort of the middle stage of Pere Ubu. Were you ever? I saw you were a member of them later on, like years later. But were you? When did you?
No. No, I was never a member of Pere Ubu.
Okay, did you perform with them sometimes or no?
I opened for them a couple of times.
Okay.
I booked them, and I didn't book Ubu. I booked David and Ralph Carney.
Oh, really?
I'm in Connecticut when I was booking a club out there. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
I was never Ubu. I was when David, shortly after the breakup of Rocket, David asked me if I wanted to work in the next project, which would become Pere Ubu. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I said no, because I was just like, we just got out of something that didn't end really well, and I don't know if I want to, get right in with the same people to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
And also right around that time, same thing with Stiv and Blitz and Cheetah. They were forming Frankenstein, which evolved into the Dead Boys.
Right.
And I even went so far as to go and rehearse with them a couple of times, and then just said, "Nah, this is just not my thing." And at the same time, was just thinking, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of town, because I had come back to Cleveland after I was drafted.
Oh.
The Army. When I came back only because I was in Mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were on the verge, or at the time, moving to Washington, D.C., and I got out of the Army. So I had no family in Cleveland. I had no real ties there except for the band.
Mm-hmm.
So when the whole thing happened with Rocket and everything, I started looking around saying, you know what? I need to find, someplace to go.
Right.
Because it doesn't seem to be happening for me here. And that's how I ended up. I got a job on the railroad and went out to Connecticut.
Oh, wow.
Started playing after about a year or so there. Got to know the lay of the land and started playing in bands out there.
When you were, I just want a quick follow up. You said that you guys opened for television. So was that late in Rocket's era and early television? I'm trying to figure out when that would have been.
Yes, well, that was July. It was, I think, July 24th and 25th, 1975.
So the television then was probably with Richard Hell, right?
Haven't recorded yet.
No, Richard Lloyd was in the band.
Mm-hmm.
They had put out the Little Johnny Jewel single.
Yeah.
Not signed the Electric deal yet.
Right.
That was on Orc Records.
Yes. Yeah, and Peter Lochner had previously gone to New York and seen television play at CB's.
Okay.
And really dug them big time.
Right.
And came back. Tom Verlaine had given Peter their demo tape at the time. He brought it back to us. I believe it had Fire Engine on it. It had Mr. Milo. It had Prove It. And might have had something else on it. But anyway, those three songs I remember. And we were all knocked out by it.
Yeah.
So Peter was determined that they had to come to Cleveland, So he set up everything, and got that 2 nights at the Piccadilly.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time, to my knowledge, that television had ever played outside of the metropolitan New York area.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. Yeah. And what an impact they made, just with that, even that one album. I mean, all their stuff was cool, but that Marquee Moon is just still a classic. People love it.
Marquee Moon. And in retrospect now, Adventure is a much, much better album than I gave it.
We were just talking about this on our show a couple weeks ago.
Hasn't been aired though,
and which hasn't been aired yet. That's true. But by the time this is aired, it may be, Nick. So who knows? Yeah, Adventure seemed very disappointing at the time. Now I go back to it and it seems better than it did. But at the time, it seemed like a real letdown.
Yeah. Well, Marquee Moon just was such a stunner. I mean, it just, you were drawn into that, and it was so hard to get that off the turntable for so long.
Right. Right.
Beautiful stuff, and what a great band, and what, going forward. I mean, look, Richard was so impressed he ended up joining the band.
Yeah, right. So I don't want to go too deep here because it may be a painful subject, but Rock from the Tombs, you've mentioned a couple times, ended badly. Was that personalities? Was it musical differences? Was it other things?
I think the main reason was we were young.
Mm-hmm.
We made, when we got together, the reason that version of that band came together was Peter had gotten WMMS to agree that if Peter brought in a tape of an original band from the Cleveland area, that they would play it on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
So that was our main goal when we first got together. We were going to make this tape that MMS was going to play, and we did.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. That was the Sunday night show, and that was the basis of what became the Life Stinks album, along with, shortly after that, we did I think it was the opening for Left End. The Agora recorded our set.
Mm-hmm.
So the songs from that and the demo that we made in our loft became the basis of that Life Stinks album.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that was just, one thing after another. Things were happening. They got, it seemed like we were getting a nice, really good buzz. People were talking about us. People were interested in us. We took the demo tape we made out to Detroit, to Birmingham, Michigan, to the offices of Cream Magazine, where Peter had become good friends with Lester Bangs.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Tape for Lester, he loved it. He was just like, you guys, yeah, you're going to be right up there with the MC5. And, I'm not saying he said that, but he had that kind of enthusiasm. I don't remember what he said.
Right.
I was pretty drunk that weekend.
Well, Lester, of course.
But I did my best to keep it together because I was the one that had to drive.
Oh.
So, and obviously we made it. But anyway, after that, how much higher could you be? You've got Lester Bangs on your side.
Yeah, right.
Things are going great. And Lester took it to, I believe it was Perlman and Krugman, the producers of Blue Oyster Cult.
Right.
He played it for either both of them or one of them. I don't remember how the story goes, but they came back with, well, it's kind of derivative. Which,
Yeah.
Really?
but anyway, that basically was like somebody taking a big old pin and popping our balloon, and we happened hanging onto that balloon when we were at about 20,000 feet.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Gotcha.
And we just crashed to the ground, and the first thing is like, oh, well, it's because you can't play or you can't sing or this or that, or we should do this, we should do that. And there wasn't anybody there. And again, this is just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And this is looking back on it years later.
Sure.
It wasn't something that I had figured out then because it took me many years to figure out what happened with that. And it just, we didn't have an older, calming hand, like a manager, someone who believed in us, someone who could see the big picture, who could calm us down and just say, look, guys, that's just one opinion. You have all these other people that really like what you're doing. Just keep doing what you're doing. You don't have to make big changes. But we didn't have that. We didn't see that.
Yeah, I mean, the Beatles got passed over, right?
Sure, exactly. And you would think that being the Beatle fans that we were and had eaten up every bit of information, we all knew that Decca turned down the Beatles.
Yeah, right.
That was part of the mantra. But no, we couldn't see that. We couldn't deal with it.
I get that, though. I get that. Sure. Mm-hmm.
Dissolution of the band.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because I think if we had stayed the course, I think we could have overcome that. I think we could have gone on to make some great music. But then again, maybe that was the point where David turned and said, all right, I'm not doing it that way anymore. I'm going to do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And he went and created Pere Ubu.
Right.
So, and Cheetah said, I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to do it this way. And him and Stiv and Johnny went off and formed the Dead Boys.
Right.
And I said, I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to do it that way. And I moved on and created my own thing with starting Saucers and the other band I've played in since then.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm glad to see. The one thing I was glad to see was that nobody walked away from that and said, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody said, damn it, I know I can do this. And we went into whatever levels we did it.
That's a good point. Yeah. It didn't destroy you. It didn't keep you from making music. It pushed you into a different direction or slightly different approach. So it's no tragedy, but at the same time, how fascinating though. That's very interesting. And
I look at that band, and another thing that made me sad, but made me glad years later, was that like when I went out to Connecticut and I was starting to meet people and trying to work my way into the music scene that was out there,
mm-hmm.
I would tell them about my background. I would tell them about Rock Spittoons, and I would always, I still had the fire and the enthusiasm for the band.
Yeah.
I had the tape. I would play the tapes. And people, their major reaction was, never heard of them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Fast forward to the mid to late 90s, the early 2000s, it was a totally different story.
Yeah, right.
You were in that band?
With the generation that came up behind us, they were the people that went and sought out those tapes.
Right.
And the tape traders that kept them moving between each other.
Mm.
They are the ones that kept our name alive and kept our music alive. I'm sure that happened with bands that you guys had too, to a certain extent, because the Bizarros, for one, are still out there making music, and
sure.
I know you guys, have a very similar history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, well, we're running out of time, which is a drag, but we're going to want to make sure to include some of your music as part of this episode.
Yeah.
So we're going to save time for that. But this has been great talking with you, Craig. Of course, your current band is Craig Bell and the Dead Man's Handle, and you guys will be playing at the end of June, a couple shows, 3 shows, sort of a little Ohio tour, it sounds like. And, specifically, we'd like to mention the June 27th show at Jilly's here in Akron, where you'll be playing with Nick in the Bizarros.
Yes, looking forward to that.
So much.
Guys in the band, we were even talking about what a great time we had the last time we played together at the theater. Was that?
That was at the local Kenmore, the Rialto. No.
Rialto.
Yeah, it was a Rialto. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed the show, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys here real soon.
And I will be at the show as a member of the audience, and so maybe if I'm lucky, Nick will introduce me to you, Craig, because I've never met you in person.
Bob, I would look forward to that, and I hope that is the case. And if he doesn't, I will seek you out myself. I will call you up.
I can't always rely on Nick, so thanks. I appreciate that.
What was I supposed to do?
When you see me, just take me to the nearest nice coffee shop.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. This has been.
Well, thank you guys too, and thanks for having me. And anytime you would like to chat, I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah, we'll have you on again because there's so much more music and so many more stories to share and hear from you. So definitely have you back on.
I'll take a sample of songs from the bands after that, and you can do with that as you wish.
Sounds great. It will be done. Okay. Right. So our guest has been Craig Bell. This has been From Akron and Beyond. I'm Bob Ethington with Nick Nicholas. We'll see you next time.
So long.